This is not the Republican Party that I grew up in. And I don't think it's ever coming back. I think it's gone. I think it's gone for good. They're in the ditch and they just don't know it yet.
How are we in the ditch? We won the national popular vote last November. We won a crushing victory in the Electoral College. We won majorities in the House and the Senate. We just passed the big, beautiful bill. Peace is breaking out in the Middle East. Peace is breaking out on the African continent. Gas prices are lower than they've been in 4 years. Taxes are going to be low. Egg prices are down 69%. The southern border is secure. Geoff, these are things Republicans have believed in for a very long time.
But Scott, I mean, we can't forget that it wasn't that long ago when you were probably closer to the Mike Pence view of this, that you were not necessarily a Trump supporter until fairly recently.
I voted for him 3 times.
In today's video, Abby Phillip and Governor Geoff Duncan absolutely destroy Scott Jennings in a heated debate about Trump on NewsNight with Abby Phillip. This debate wasn't just about Trump himself, but about what the GOP has become under his grip, a party that traded its principles and conservative values for cheap populism and culture wars. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip and Geoff Duncan shut down Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip.
Geoff, you may be the perfect person to answer this question. Is Mike Pence right that that's a minority view, that Trump is sort of leading this sort of limited faction of the Republican Party right now?
With all due respect, Mike Pence is not correct when he makes that statement. Donald Trump completely controls the entire GOP, and the only example I can give that equates to it is like a rogue cult leader coming into a church and taking it over. He's brainwashed him, and you don't have to look any further than the zombie-esque reaction to even the last few weeks. I mean, Doge has imploded. He's made promises, yet the base doesn't hold him accountable for it. We've spent trillions of dollars in debt that he promised that we wouldn't. We still have wars in Ukraine raging, and he's taken the sides of Vladimir Putin until the last few hours. This is not the Republican Party that I grew up in. And I don't think it's ever coming back. I think it's gone. I think it's gone for good. They're in the ditch and they just don't know it yet.
How are we in the ditch? We won the national popular vote last November. We won a crushing victory in the Electoral College. We won majorities in the House and the Senate. We just passed the big, beautiful bill. Peace is breaking out in the Middle East. Peace is breaking out on the African continent. Gas prices are lower than they've been in 4 years. Taxes are going to be low. Egg prices are down 69%. The southern border is secure. Geoff, these are things Republicans have believed in for a very long time.
But Scott, I mean, we can't forget that it wasn't that long ago when you were probably closer to the Mike Pence view of this, that you were not necessarily a Trump supporter until fairly recently.
I voted for him 3 times.
Making news here at this table, because what I'm pointing to is that your evolution is mirroring something that's happened in the Republican Party in general. January 2024, 40% of GOP leading voters ID'd as MAGA supporters. March 2025, that number is now 71%. So I'm actually not so sure that anything about Trump has changed in the interim. It's really more that people like you have gone from being more aligned with a Mike Pence to being more aligned with Donald Trump. Explain that to us.
It's a good and valid question, but I don't see much disalignment. They have a personality conflict. Pence and Trump obviously had a falling out over a very serious issue, but on conservative orthodox policy stuff, the only real area where Trump has truly changed the party is on tariffs and trade. He believes in tariffs a lot more than any other president has since the early 1900s. And so that is a major difference in the platform. I acknowledge that. But on taxes, on the border, on pro-life, on having a strong military, and even now getting NATO strengthened with the 5%, helping Israel defeat Iran, he's not an isolationist. He is on many ways the same as every other Republican president of my lifetime and of your lifetime. There are some differences, but it's not as vast, I think, as you want it to be.
Donald Trump does not remind me of Ronald Reagan. And the Scott Jennings, who was a Republican growing up, working for Mitch McConnell, George Bush, and others, very respectable Republicans, would probably not even shake hands with the Scott Jennings that's sitting here.
Now let's look at the numbers. Trump didn't just win over a faction, he's reshaped the whole party. A Pew study last year found that over 70% of Republican voters now identify as primarily MAGA Republicans, not just conservatives. That's a huge shift in identity, and unlike past GOP leaders, Trump doesn't care about fiscal responsibility. Under his administration, the national debt rose by nearly $8 trillion, the third biggest increase in US history. For a party that once prided itself on balanced budgets, that's a total abandonment of principle. And then there's foreign policy. Scott Jennings tries to argue that Trump strengthened NATO, but let's not forget, Trump repeatedly threatened to pull out of NATO altogether, which would have been a geopolitical gift to Russia. Traditional conservatives like Bush or McCain believed in America leading global alliances. Donald Trump openly praised Putin and Kim Jong-un, which was unheard of in GOP politics before 2016. So Geoff's analogy of a cult leader isn't hyperbole. It explains why policies that Republicans once rejected, like ballooning deficits, trade wars with allies, or underwhelming US institutions, are now cheered on by the base. It's not conservatism anymore, it's Trumpism.
I shook hands with Mitch McConnell this week, so A. B, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump worked together to change the Supreme Court and give us a 6-3 majority to pass the tax cuts in 2017. Again, personal differences are
Donald
different
Trump
than policy
showed
alignment.
respect to your former boss, Mitch McConnell?
Do I think
he's
he has shown
respected
respect to him?
Yeah.
Not always, no.
If we asked you to find one day since his inauguration that he has not lied to you and your family, do you think you could do it? One day he's spoken publicly? Because he can't stop lying, Scott. And I do think the party's changed quite a bit. The Republican Party I grew up with would not delight in beating cops for a lie and then pardoning the people who beat the cops. I don't know what conservatism means anymore. This gentleman is the perfect person to speak to what Mike Pence is going through, because what does it mean? It doesn't mean family values, doesn't mean the Christian values, fiscal responsibility.
Again, we
with
don't
this
live in a
deficit spending?
theocracy. We live in a nation of laws, and we live in a nation of
the
policy
Republican
choices.
Party, the Republican
Our
Party's
policy
ideology.
choices today are basically the same as Republican policy choices, with the exception of tariffs, which I acknowledge. But this president, has done a lot of conservative stuff that people have always wanted.
You've said two things a few times on the show. One about not living in a theocracy, which you're right. But it is also true, and I think this is John's point, that for many, many decades, the Republican Party, and even under Trump, says explicitly, we are a Judeo-Christian society. He, he claims to his supporters that his faith is important, that it's the most important thing in American society. He says that.
Yeah.
The Bible should be taught in schools, that he is selling a Bible with his name on it. So there's that.
It's
but
true.
then secondly, the party of George W. Bush, of compassionate conservatism, of immigration reform, that party is also gone too.
Well,
right?
That party understood soft power in USAID.
USAID, PEPFAR, that party is also gone, is it not?
What really jumps out to me in this debate is how Scott Jennings keeps trying to argue that Trump is just another conservative president with a few quirks. But that's just not true when you look at the bigger picture. The GOP under Trump isn't just about tax cuts or judges. It's about dismantling long-standing Republican principles and replacing them with whatever serves Trump in the moment. Take family values, for example. This was once the cornerstone of the Republican brand. George W. Bush's compassionate conservatism tied policy to moral responsibility, like PEPFAR, which literally saved millions of lives from HIV, AIDS worldwide. Trump, he bragged about sexual assault on tape, cheated on his wives, and sold Bibles with his name on them like it's just another piece of merch. That's not Christian leadership, that's grift or fiscal responsibility. Reagan, Bush, even Paul Ryan's GOP consistently preached about deficits and debt. But under Trump, the national debt ballooned by nearly $8 trillion in just 4 years, even before the pandemic hit. That's the third largest debt increase of any US president in history. If Democrats had done that, Republicans would be screaming socialism. And on national security and alliances, the old GOP used to champion NATO and global leadership. Trump threatened to pull out of NATO, praised dictators like Putin and Kim Jong-un, and treated allies like enemies. That's not conservative foreign policy, that's reckless isolationism dressed up as America first.
I come at this from a completely different position. I actually see a more welcoming Republican Party as somebody who comes traditionally from the left. And I say this with regard to 4 things that I outlined personally. So I perceive the Republican Party as being interventionist with foreign policy and now being more America first, although I did support what we did in Iran, but we're not engaged in a forever war as far as I can tell. And we were with Cheney and Bush. We have been previously. His position on abortion, well, I am more to the left on this. It used to be fully pro-life. He's suggesting, it goes to the states, and I believe he said he would never support a federal abortion ban. He said he wouldn't block gay marriage, which is something that I thought was always traditionally a conservative position. And the tariffs thing, as you mentioned, as far as I can remember, conservatives were globalists. They were for free trade, and it arguably hollowed out the middle class. So I'm with Trump on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that this divide right here, I mean, you're demonstrating a lot of reasons why Trump was able to actually make inroads in Democratic constituencies, but you're suggesting that he's the same old Republican as everybody else.
No.
But I think that Jillian is perhaps proof that that's not the case.
His attitude and his ability to get things done, his spirit, the way he fights the left, the way he fights for free speech in Western civilization, and the way he's open to coalition building and building non-traditional alliances is a key political talent.
I think that explains your support for Trump, but I think that that Jillian is correct that on those policy issues, Trump has tried to be somewhere in, dare I say, a bit of the mushy middle on some of this stuff. He ran as an anti-war candidate. What he ran on versus how he actually governs, it shifts. But what he ran on and what he pulled people in on, I think, is the difference here.
But I think we
between
also
the two of you.
Can't ignore not only Geoff and the divides here at the table, but the millions of people, thousands of people who consider themselves anti-Trump, who were once Republicans, and a whole movement of Republicans who, I can remember sitting at a meeting leading up to this election. I've got Bill Kristol sitting here. I've got, former friends, conservatives from across the aisle. We were all aligned in how do we defeat Trump. It was a meeting.
How'd it work out?
You know what, Scott?
Just
All right.
Well, I'll tell you what. He's
Guys,
underwater on every single issue. Hold on. Why don't you let me finish?
Guys, we gotta go.
My only point is, I think you can't ignore the fact that there are thousands of people who consider themselves traditional Republicans, like Geoff, who no longer see a home in the Republican Party.
Let's take abortion. Sure, Trump waffles and says it should go to the states, but let's not forget, he is the reason Roe v. Wade was overturned in the first place. He bragged about stacking the Supreme Court with justices handpicked to dismantle reproductive rights, and now you've got states pushing extreme 6-week bans, no exceptions for rape or incest, and criminal penalties for doctors. That didn't happen under Bush or Romney. That happened under Trump. Or foreign policy. Scott frames him as anti-war, but Trump massively escalated drone strikes compared to Obama, tried to pull troops out of Syria only to send them back in to secure the oil, and in his final year approved $23 billion in weapon sales to the UAE. That's not ending forever wars, that's cashing in on them. And on trade, yeah, tariffs sound populist, but they ended up being a hidden tax on Americans. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated Trump's tariffs reduced U.S. household income by about $1,200 per year. Farmers in the Midwest got hit so hard that his administration had to bail them out with billions in subsidies, taxpayer money, to cover the damage from his own trade war. Meanwhile, you've got polling showing he's underwater with independents and suburban voters, and a whole block of lifelong Republicans like Geoff Duncan, Adam Kinzinger, and Liz Cheney saying flat out, this isn't the party they signed up for. That tells you everything. So Abby Phillip's right. Trump didn't modernize the GOP, he broke it. He replaced conservative principles with loyalty tests and turned the party into a personal brand. That's why so many conservatives who care about governing, not just fighting, are leaving. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.